Hello there, folks, and welcome along to episode 4 of That 6Smith Show, the only show where you get not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 alternative different insights into the weird, wonderful, wacky world of Newcastle United, and the only show where you get one complete tosspot providing you with those insights. That's me, Andy 6Smith, and I'm here as ever with the legend, the man behind GallowgateShots himself, Mr. Chris Wallace. Chris, how you doing?
I'm not bad.
Yeah.
Apart from I've saw what we both look like on camera, and it looks like we're wearing matching clothes today.
We planned this. We planned it. I realized it was his birthday the other day, so I thought the worst birthday present I could possibly give you was turning up dressed exactly the same as you.
Thanks, mate.
And you pull it off far better than I do, mate. This is literally, as I said to Chris off camera, this is my Friday post-press conference, post-work, and pre-match weekend sort of attire. And yeah, I just don't pull it. I'm not a fashionable bloke.
Kind of seem a bit of a slob, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't do fashion. You can pull it off. I can't. So apologies, viewers, but I'm sure it won't be the last time I apologize in this episode. Chris, it was your birthday. How was it? Was it all right?
It was
42,
good.
Yeah?
Yes, mate. You just had to insult us.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
This is how it's going to go. This
No, one step closer to 40. Not there just yet, mate. Getting closer. It was good. Went to Turtle Bay, bottomless brunch.
Yeah.
It's always best to go on a Tuesday because there's nobody there, so you get more cocktails that way.
Don't tell me
go on a weekend.
Tell Sandro Tonali.
Oh,
Get him away from Weatherspoons. Get towards Turtle Bay.
Turtle Bay.
Bottomless. Maybe not the bottomless brunch.
Imagine.
Maybe not the bottomless brunch.
Yeah, but I had a good time, mate.
Excellent.
How have you been?
Fantastic. Yeah, not so bad. I mean, international break's been quite busy with everything away from the pitch and from away from the training ground and everything. But I'm sure we'll get onto that this week because there's plenty to get through. We are going to try our best. I say this every week, don't I? We are going to try our best to fit this into half an hour because we've got places to be and people to see. So fingers crossed. Let's dive into things. First things first, Chris. Predictions. Can we solemnly swear like we're in a Harry Potter film or book that not we're up to no good, but we're never going to make a prediction ever again after the Brighton game?
I think it's probably safe to say that. Do you know what
see that coming?
Do you know what it is? Though? I don't think we ever said we're going to smash them. I think maybe
no,
you
we
did.
Did
you say that?
I don't know.
I think you might have said, "Well, I hope we smash them," because we're praising Brighton and how good of a football club that they are. It didn't go to plan. No. Far from it. We did not get the reaction that we were hoping for.
We didn't, but in our defence, we did say Brighton are a very, very good football club and a very, very good football team, and Brighton proved that they were a very, very good football team.
We just didn't stick that caveat in there that we weren't going to be very good.
No, we had an off day, shall we say, I think. Yes. So less said about that one, the better. I've made a note on my notes saying just skate past that. That can be one of our quick ones this week. So, Brighton's long gone. Brighton's done and dusted. It kind of feeds into the next point. I know, and I'm sorry, folks. Last episode, I went on a bit of a rant, didn't I? I went on that rant about overreactions, and the same has to come again. Look, again, I will make this caveat because I had a few people mention this to me and say, well, we're fans, we're entitled to our opinions. Absolutely, 100%. Everyone is entitled to their opinions. Everyone should have their feelings on how Newcastle played, the results, if it wasn't good enough, etc., etc. But I'm sure you, like me, Chris, have seen some strange old thoughts in the past week or so where they've been talking about Eddie and talking about the players. These are the players that got us fourth last season. These are the players and the management team that got us into the Champions League. Sure, 3 defeats from opening 4. Eddie was the first to say in the press conference this morning, that's not good enough, okay? Appreciate we've played Liverpool, Man City, Brighton as well, where they have to be lumped in with the quality teams in the Premier League, and obviously smashed Villa on the opening weekend. But 3 defeats from the opening 4 still doesn't make good reading. But having said that, I mean, it was 1 win from the opening 7 last season at the start of the season. That season didn't end up too bad, did it?
Did you not think the reaction has came from the overall performance against Brighton?
Yeah.
I think if it would put a bit more of a fight up, then you wouldn't be getting this because everybody appreciates how good Brighton are and how difficult this run has been.
Yeah.
It was just really the performance.
It was lethargic.
Yeah,
it was lethargic. It wasn't the same intense Newcastle that we used.
I think it's because obviously everybody was hoping for that reaction from the downfall against the last 20 minutes against Liverpool.
Yeah.
Then it just went from bad to worse, didn't it really?
And I think Eddie kind of alluded to it in his presser this morning. I tend to watch Eddie very, very close. No, it sounds
Sounds a bit weird.
That sounds dead weird, doesn't it? I don't just got my eyes fixated on the poor man
at his door
from the front row. Oh my God! No, I do tend to watch him rather closely, not eye to eye all the way through. But I like to see what his reactions are and how he kind of answers things, because he's a difficult man to read. He'd be very, very difficult to play poker against. And he was answering, obviously, about the performance against Brighton, which he admitted, he admitted post-match there down at the MX that it wasn't good enough. But he talked at length this morning about how that, there was a little bit of a hangover. Didn't use those words, but how there was a little bit of a hangover from the Liverpool game and how that ended. And that does make sense. It translated into that Brighton performance. I sat down with Dan Byrne just yesterday, and we had a chat about it, about the fact that Newcastle weren't at the races. I think Dan used that expression. They weren't as intense as usual. And I think anyone could see that. But I think I'd be more worried if they produced that performance 3 or 4 times in a row. One-offs, fine. That's okay. 3 or 4 times in a row, I think then there would be a little bit concerned from the players themselves, from Eddie as well. And, obviously we'd have to assess things then. But
like I said last time we recorded, it's because these results have came in very quick succession, whereas last season was similar results spread across the whole season. It just doesn't look good on paper.
No, it doesn't. And I mean, I saw the statistic: Newcastle didn't lose 3 on the spin last season, and to lose 3 on the spin this season, not ideal, but far, far, far from a crisis. So overreacting, no, I think Eddie used the word calm this morning. That's the word, calm. Apart from if you're going to Newcastle United against Brentford tomorrow at St. James's Park, when, as ever, St. James's Park is going to be far from calm, and there's going to be 52,000 Geordies absolutely bellowing the living hell out of Brentford. So, all being well, a raucous atmosphere tomorrow night. I'm going to get serious for a second, Chris. I'm sorry, I know this isn't the type of podcast to get serious. Steve Harper, that news, that was a bit of a... That was a bolt out of the blue.
It was. And do you know what it is? I knew nothing about it until obviously there was that update to say this had happened.
Yeah.
But he's responsive at the minute. He's in a decent place at the minute. It's sad news, of course it is. But fingers crossed. Obviously,
he's a top bloke.
Yeah.
Absolute top bloke is Harps. Eddie talked about it at length this morning in the presser, and he said how much Harps had done for him personally when he arrived in Newcastle, and obviously showed him not necessarily around the town, didn't lead him around the town in the best drinking halls, and ended up in Turtle Bay for bottomless brunch. But Turtle Bay's getting some advertising today on the pod, isn't it? Are you not telling me something here? Are we after some sponsorship?
Just wait next week. Let's turn up with dreadlocks and Rasta.
Be more worried if I turn up exactly the same again like I have done this week, won't it? But yeah, seriously speaking, Eddie spoke at length about Harps and how much he kind of helped him out, and he's a true Newcastle bloke through and through. So I think it shocked everyone around the club. I think it shocked, obviously, Eddie himself and all of the players as well. So
I've got a little story about Steve Harper.
Go on.
It's a very awkward moment which I had.
Excellent. Love all love stories.
It's like show and tell, isn't it? So I was at the Football Writers Awards last year.
Yeah.
William Hill invited us along just to help out with a couple of interviews and stuff. And like, oh, Chris, you're going to be interviewing Steve Harper. He meant it was just before the trip to Wembley.
Yeah.
So people watch the documentary, you'll see Bruno picking up his award at that event.
Yeah.
So I go out and I'm there interviewing him on behalf of William Hill. I completely forgot that he worked for the club still.
Oh God!
So I'm just asking normal questions, blah blah blah, about his time at the club, what it means going to Wembley and stuff. And as obviously you'll get to enjoy it as a fan this time around. God, he worked at the club. But he quickly corrected us, as you would expect him to.
Yeah,
saying, "Well, I'm still involved." Oh yeah, I knew that.
There are worse people that get a wrong question aimed at than Steve Harper. I'm sure he dealt with it very, very nicely. Oh, mate, honestly, we've all been there, and me every single week, to be fair, asking stupid questions. So, that's.
Did you know that Hall and Livermore were at Chelsea together?
For anyone who didn't watch episode 3, don't watch episode 3. There's a sharp reminder of it. But yeah, seriously speaking, Harps, obviously hope he's recovering well. By all sounds of it, he is recovering, and hopefully there's no lasting damage, and he can get back to doing what he loves and what everyone loves seeing him do. So nice little touch from Eddie this morning, talking about Steve. Speaking about Eddie, we can't talk about Eddie Howe and not talk about the Great North Run.
Ooh, I forgot about this.
Sensation. Well, you did say to me off camera beforehand, you're going in a little bit cold this week, so to speak. Could have used a different vernacular, but we won't. It's a family show. But you're going in cold this week, and you're not entirely, au fait with everything quirky that's happened around the club. The Great North Run, for anyone who didn't see and has been living under a rock, was started by Eddie Howe. Fantastic accolade. Great to see Eddie starting it. 24 degrees it was at the start line, and trust me, I know it was because I was there at the start line.
How are your legs?
Struggled badly. Right, okay. Event number 9 out of 15, and the knees are broken, mate. But less said about that one, the better when you're being overtaken by an 85-year-old on the finish line. So he was a fast 85-year-old, in fairness, is my defense. But Eddie was starting it, obviously, 24-degree heat, black suit.
Yeah, didn't choose well, did he?
No, he did talk about this. I had to ask him about it because, as you well know, Chris, I don't like to talk football necessarily all the time at press conferences.
Fashion Andy this week,
Apparently so. Who am I to judge anyone's fashion choices at all, let alone the Newcastle United manager? But I did ask him and say, the black suit, 24-degree heat, how did that one go down? And he was like, yeah, just misread the weather, didn't I? To put it bluntly.
He's literally employed by a football club that has unlimited amount of leisure wear. So at what point I'm going to wear the suit today?
He clearly wanted to go smart, didn't he? And you know what? I can't knock the man because I'd have done exactly the same. That's the sort of thing I'd have done and turned up and gone, geez, it's a bit warm today, isn't it? Yeah, it's 23 degrees, Andy. Right, I've just worn an all black suit. Yeah.
Put that fur coat on.
I felt so sorry for the bloke. And, he just said where he's obviously coming from home, it were foggy. He didn't realise it would be that warm in September in Newcastle. And trust us, Eddie, I don't think we've encountered it that warm in September.
It turned later on, didn't it?
Well,
it turned later on.
He was well dressed for later on, put it that way. But
the only thing which I saw from the whole Great North Run thing is that it didn't really go down well on our side.
No, and he did allude to this as well. The Sunderland supporters or supporters of other clubs. I think he said he didn't name drop Sunderland in a Newcastle press conference, but supporters of other clubs who I'm sure you saw on social media, there were a few less than savoury comments.
Magfest. It's a magfest.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's not like he's the first Newcastle United manager to ever start the Great North Run.
Well, Kevin Keegan ran it in half black and white, half red and white top.
He did.
If you remember right.
And he ran it quick probably as well.
What I don't understand is that, I don't want to focus too much on this, but it's a race which started at any postcode, which continues through any postcode, which ends.
See where you're going with this.
In an NA postcode.
Where's the problem?
Yes.
And it wasn't, I mean, look, he's a big name.
Yeah.
Like Eddie, whether he's a Newcastle United manager or not, he's a big name.
Well, you're not forced to give him a high five.
No, you're not.
Go
Just go to the other side of the road. It's absolutely fine. And
where's Tony Mowbray?
I mean, I'll be honest. I did witness something quite funny, and I don't know if the person who did this watches this podcast, but I hope so. And if they do, please, please, please make yourself known. But there was a bloke who didn't go up, in fairness to Eddie Howe, at the start line, but he was quite clearly a Sunderland or a Borough fan, probably a Sunderland fan, and he was swearing away to himself as we ran over the start line. And I won't say exactly what he was saying, but it wasn't particularly nice things about Eddie and about Newcastle United. And this bloke to his left, I don't know whether he deliberately tripped him, but he knocked into him, let's say that, and sent him flying.
Good.
So knocking a few seconds off his time in a 2-hour race, roughly, or 2 hours 13 if you me. But whatever, less said about that one, the better. So there was a little bit of comeback there for one fan who decided he was going to be less than savoury towards the Newcastle United manager. But I didn't see anyone physically go up to him in it, but obviously saw the videos. And
did you high five him?
I didn't. He actually moved on to the other side. I was going to just wave at him, and he obviously saw us coming and thought, I see enough of that. That lad at press conferences every week.
I thought I was dodging him for a week.
Thought he was going incognito in his black suit. Thought I wouldn't recognize him. Well, no. But no, he dodged me, thankfully. So it was an excellent move on Eddie's part. But great to see him there at the start line, even if I didn't get a high five from him. Speaking of, let's move quickly on. Dan Byrne sat down with him yesterday. Well, as I mentioned before, always enjoy a chat with Dan. Great chat. Because it doesn't feel like you're interviewing a footballer. Like, it's just a chat about anything and everything, usually football, let's face it. I don't know if you saw, but Dan is now, I think the best way to put it is he's in partnership with a car garage. in performance 28, I want to call it. I think it is.
All right.
I don't know. Anyway, he went in and basically wasn't there to get a partnership at all. And basically, the bloke who ran it was like, "Oh, by the way, do you want to like have this Dodge Charger?" And Dan is into his American sports and everything like that in a big way. And obviously, we all know the story about Dan and a smart car, which isn't Dan's. It's Paul Dummett's. So there's that. But now Dan is rolling around in a Dodge Charger, and apparently his 3-year-old absolutely loves this car straight away. So we spent a good 5 minutes off camera just talking about Dan and his Dodge Charger. But it did bring me round to this podcast and my kind of warped way of thinking. If they're a Newcastle United player, what car would they be? Now, it brings back to a conversation I remember having with Longy last season. And he was sat down with Sven Botman. Obviously, the Sven Botman's a Rolls Royce type thing. Bear with us here, Chris. I can see you. You're switching off mentally. You're switching off mentally. It's a long-winded way of basically saying Newcastle United players, what cars would they be? Longy said he was kind of like that run around who just keeps going and going and going and going and going. Botman's a Rolls Royce, apparently. Dan Burn, definitely a Dodge. Absolutely. I'd go with a Dodge for him, 100%. So I'm going to list you some Newcastle United players, and you're going to go with this.
This might take up the full half hour, but let's go.
It could do, but we'll see. I've only picked 3. Alex Isak.
Ooh, he's like Ferrari, him, like
Ferrari.
Like slick.
Going for that's strong. I'm not going to disagree with that, to be honest. Bruno Guimaraes.
Oh, something flamboyant.
Ferrari.
He's going to be a convertible. Some sort of convertible, isn't he? Like Flash.
I'm devastated you didn't say taxi. Bearing in mind his dad. Yeah, but it's all right. Yeah, I totally see where you're coming with that one.
Taxi convertible.
Taxi convertible. Tell you what, I can't wait to be picked up in Oosburn by a convertible taxi one day. Not Bruno, obviously. Fabian Cher.
Ooh.
Steady.
A Fiat 500.
A Fiat 500?
Yeah.
Go on.
Just because he like lasses that normally drive a Fiat 500 are like they're a bit. I'm trying to be really polite here. They like themselves a little bit.
I can see the mischief in your eyes from here.
They like themselves a little bit. A bit of a show off. Fabian Shaw's that car,
like it.
Well maintained.
I was going to look for a car that was a bargain, to be honest. I mean, a Fiat 500 could be a bargain. Yeah, that's fair.
I hope he doesn't watch
this. Is brilliant content for any interviews I do for the rest of the season, by the way, because this is going to be a constant trail. I'll give you one more, and then we'll stop this god-awful segment of the podcast. It's dying on its backside by the second.
I've just named him a Fiat 500. No way. Let's be honest.
I would want to leave it on that, but Kieran Trippier will end with
Ooh. Honestly, that's stumped us.
It's a strong one.
I'm thinking of like something that's going to give him credit, as in like not a Fiat 500.
Not a Fiat 500.
Oh, what can he be? I actually don't know that one. What's your thoughts on that one?
I would go with a Land Rover, full of class, keeps going and going. I can see Trips going on playing until he's like 36, 37, comfortably at the level it is right now.
More of a discovery.
Something like that. But something that you're going to have to pay a fair whack of money for, but you're going to get longevity and you're going to get quality out of it.
Yeah.
I would go with that with Trips.
This was a really tough segment.
It was, wasn't it? I mean,
thanks for giving us heads up, mate.
Sorry, fella. I'm still reeling from a Fiat 500 Fabian Cher.
You could imagine it.
It's the classy as well, kind of. I don't know. Anyway, do you want to move on to our last point and dig you out of this hole that you're digging yourself with? Okay, all right. I didn't ask you about Callum Wilson. Actually, yeah, go on, Callum Wilson.
Well, if Callum Wilson was going to come up, I would have put him as the Range Rover.
The Range Rover. Yeah. I would have gone Audi on Callum. But relatively like an Audi Q3, something like that.
Yeah, I'm still sticking with Range Rover.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, okay. Anyway, the reason I was trying to segue into it, the news came out today that Callum has signed an extra 1 year onto his contract, 2025, etc. Look, I'm going to admit something right now. But when we're kind of at match days and when we're working on match days and everything, and obviously we have to try and select what player that we want to interview from both teams after the game. And for Newcastle, you know, there's always, I mean, Pua Trips always gets picked for Sky. Bruno tends to get picked for Sky straight away. And we always, at PLP, always get someone else because we don't want the same one necessarily. And Callum, I feel well sorry for him because I always tend to put Callum down on the list of the several players that I want. And I'm sure, and Callum, I don't know, if he does watch this, great, fantastic. If he does, Callum, I'm really sorry that I put you down the list every single time. It's because you're a bloody good speaker, mate. And we always end up having a decent bit of crack. And most importantly, like Chris and Steve Harper, you do tend to be nice to me when I ask you ridiculous questions as well, and forget that you're a substitute and you're out on the pitch, and then ask you what Eddie Howe said in the dressing room at half time. Yes, I'm an idiot, and I don't know my football as well as I like to think I do. But still, point being, great chat always after the game is Callum, and just a pure prime goal scorer. And I don't say that because of the amount of goals he scored for Newcastle. And he is closing on the 100 club now and closing in on being second top scorer for Newcastle. But more to the point, some of the answers he's given us when he's been like, scored 2, been absolute. And I've been like, he's come off the bench, scored 2 goals. And he's come straight in, fuming. Yeah. Should have been a hat trick. Should have been a hat trick straight away. It's a winner's mentality. It's a goal scorer mentality. It's tremendous, man. So brilliant to see him sign a new one.
I did a podcast with a Brentford fan group a couple of days ago, just on a recording, and one of the questions was which Newcastle player should we look out for?
I thought you were going to say which if they were a Newcastle player, who would be at 500?
Then automatically, me brain went to Isak. I thought he's got that touch of class about him. But then I started talking about Isak, and I said, even though I went, if Isak is substituted off, obviously, then you've got to worry about Callum Wilson coming on the field, or vice versa, whatever it may be.
And a super hungry Callum Wilson as well, with a point to prove.
Do you know what it is? Like you just mentioned Trippier playing for God knows how long. I think Wilson's in the same sort of bracket.
Yeah.
He's physically fit, and you can see that he demands so much from himself that he'll just continue the way he is now. And I honestly think he's a type of player that just loves playing football, where you could see him in the later years of his career, where he'll start dropping down the leagues just so he's still playing. Absolutely. For Wrexham.
Yeah. No, he's jeez. There you go, Cal. Happy new 1-year deal.
You still got like 10 years before you can go Wrexham.
I would hope so. I really would. I mean, you raise a really good point there, because if you cast your mind back to when he started his Newcastle United career, and obviously he was struggling with injuries again. He was still picking up the odd knock left, right, and centre. Obviously, he's not playing 90 minutes every single week. I appreciate that. But when was the last time Callum picked up a serious knock that kept him out for weeks and weeks?
It's helped, hasn't it? The squad's helped.
Yeah.
The workload's been shifted amongst everybody else, and not just him and Maxi.
Yeah.
It's been shifted amongst everybody else, so that's helped. And obviously, the backroom changes as well.
Absolutely.
They can't be anything beneficial for him.
No. And you know what? That was kind of a light bulb, and I should have asked Eddie about that this morning. I'm shocked no one asked the age-old question of, you're tempted to play Alex and Callum together this weekend, Eddie? Can they play together?
We've tried.
How many times has that question been asked over and over and over again? And he always provides the same answer on it. But I just wonder whether there is that feeling again of trying to put them alongside each other.
It worked a couple of times towards the end of last season, but then it didn't work a couple of times towards the last season. Then I think there's been one glimpse this season where they've played where Isak got shifted on the left-hand side. And he was doing okay there.
Unpopular opinion, Alex is better as a central striker.
Yeah.
I know, I understand this whole shift him out of the left wing, and I mean, he's a classy player. I mean, he could play it right back if he needed to. But at the end of it, I am one of those very, very few people who believe that he's better centrally than he is out on the left wing. And I think to put him on the left and to put Callum up top, I just feel like there's too much clash there. And it's difficult because they're both... Callum is just a predatory goal scorer. Alex is just classy as hell and provides so much as well.
I'm not convinced by those being on the field at the same time.
No.
Not yet.
No, and I just wonder, I think Eddie is too concentrating on having two wingers, your Barnes and your Gordon, or your Miggy and your Barnes, two hard-working wingers to track back. Not saying that Alex wouldn't, but obviously his primary focus is on getting into the box. So, yeah, it's an interesting one, but I just feel like Callum's banging on the door to go on a bit of a goal-scoring run at the minute. Just something in me. He ended last season brilliantly. Obviously, he was top scorer in the Premier League since April. And when you've got Erling Haaland doing his business for Manchester City, that's no mean feat at the business end of the season. So I just wonder whether Callum might get a nod tomorrow. Look, we said it at the outset of the show.
Wouldn't be shocked, let's be honest.
I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked. But we started at the outset of the show saying that me and you were never going to make a prediction. So we're not making a prediction on who's starting tomorrow. That's it.
Might not be Wilson.
Exactly. I'm going back on already what I've just said now, aren't I?
Are you nervous for tomorrow? I'm slightly nervous.
No. It's real bring it on territory tomorrow.
No, I get...
not as in Newcastle going to smash them. Just I'm really excited about.
Are you?
St James's.
I'm on that side.
Are you?
I'm more nervous because I think we discussed this. In fact, no, we didn't, because obviously we hadn't had the result from Brighton.
Yeah.
I think depending on the result tomorrow, it basically explains how we've started the season.
Yeah.
If it's going to be a good start, if we get all 3 points, you probably think, fair enough, it's an okay start.
Yeah.
If we don't get all 3 points, even if we come out with 1 point, I think we'll be looking at that. I think that's a poor start.
It's a massive game.
Yeah.
It's a bigger game than Milan on Tuesday. It's an actual big must win. God almighty, 5 games in. We're like, must win games straight off. No, I think it's a bigger game than Milan.
Yeah.
On Tuesday. I know, I understand the Champions League. Yes. I get that. But it's a bigger game in terms of the context of seasons. Lose against Milan or draw against Milan at the San Siro, it's fine. You've got 5 more games, and Newcastle have got previous, haven't we, in Europe of sending things around.
That the player, I know Eddie Howe will say that he won't let this happen. But do you think the players have got one eye on that?
No.
That tie? Do you not think?
No, absolutely not. Honest to God, we were told before the interviews yesterday, and it was made very, very clear within about a minute and a half of the presser starting this morning, there is laser sharp focus on Saturday night.
Okay.
Then we'll focus on Milan. I did like it that Eddie had pointed out right at the start of the presser in one of the questions and said, look, I'm reluctant to talk about Milan today in the press conference. And journalists being journalists.
And somebody said, what about Milan?
Eddie? Asking him anyway, but it was worth a try, and he shut them straight down. So, I genuinely, I understand your point, mate. And yeah, I think it's natural for anyone as a human. You forget that they're human beings as well. They're obviously looking ahead and going, we're playing the San Siro on Tuesday night. But I think this game has become so big tomorrow against Brentford that actually it's full focus on that. So we shall see. But yeah, I'm a little bit excited. I'm just excited to be 5:30 St James's Park. Difficult weather conditions predicted, not by us. That's, I just feel like it's got one of those nights. There are always goals between Newcastle and Brentford as well, and they are leaky at the back, and they're really leaky.
They don't like playing us.
No, they don't like coming to St James's. I mean,
I don't think
4-1 last season.
I think the last time they got a result against us as in a victory was in the cup, if I remember right. The last 4 times, I think it's been 3 Newcastle wins and a draw.
Yeah,
if I remember right.
And the game last season at St James's was not close. As soon as Bruno scored that header from a free kick, it were pretty much out the hands straight away. I know they made 2 mistakes at the back, but different teams obviously in different forms as well compared to last year. But I just feel like, why did we say we're not going to make predictions and now we're like,
I've not made one.
I didn't quite. Perfect way to end. So we can't get ripped for this next week.
Before we go, can I change my answer for Fabian Shaw?
I was really hoping you would. Go on.
I think he'd be a speedboat. And I know that's not a car, but I think he'd demand to be a speedboat.
That'll do us for episode 4 of that 6Smith show then. He could be a speedboat on the back of it.
No, he just literally be
just a speedboat.
I'm a speedboat, yeah.
Just heading down the A167
on wheels.
On wheels. Love the idea. With a Swiss flag just on the side of it as well. Beautiful. Anywho, that will do us, I reckon, for episode 4 of that 6Smith show. We can't delve any more into the wacky, wonderful world of Newcastle United for now. So hopefully, positive result against Brentford. But for now, from him, Chris Wallace, from me, Andy 6Smith, that has been that 6Smith show. And we shall see you in 7. Ta-ta.
Done it in 30 minutes as well.